Okay, let's see. I don't know why this has to be so hard. Oh, there it is. Okay.
I don't know why this has to be so
and there. Okay. So this might be well, last week was a favorite topic of mine, but this week is another one. So there's nobody here, so I'll give you guys a couple of minutes, but because this, oh, somebody's here, hello. Because this goes into the group stream, I won't wait too long. So what I'm going to be talking about today is really based on the 7 Hermetic Principles, and then I'm going to throw in a little bit of extra information. And then at the end, I'm going to tie it all together based on how it really relates to creating, and specifically creating hi, Karen. Thanks for coming. So I am going to tie it into how it relates to creating, but then maybe more specifically kind of throughout how it relates to like creating relationships. Hi, Tracy. All right. So because understanding these laws will really help you create more easily or move through any resistance that you find coming up. So after I had I guess manifested, I really started studying like a lot of various teachers, some of them spiritual, some of them otherwise, and I was all really less looking for what they had to say and more looking for like the common messages, because these, in my opinion, are kind of like the truths, because everybody has a different opinion about how you can go about it. And so different things resonate with different people. And there's no really wrong way per se. They're just sort of different opinions. So I always really like kind of a little bit of spirituality and a little bit of science and a whole lot of energy. And so a really important thing to understand is that energy will always take the path of least resistance. So we see this like, you know, wind through the valley, water through the river. When it goes through the rocks, it doesn't like go over the rocks. It goes in between the rocks until there's enough pressure. And so it will always based on whatever structure it's in. And humans, being energetic beings, we actually also will always take the path of least resistance. And so when it comes to creating things, I always tend to like to look at like what's the resistance that's coming up, because the emotions and the beliefs, they're going to pop up and then you're going to know, because there's you, there's all the resistance, and then there's the thing you want. And so really it's only a matter of moving through the resistance in order to get there. That's all. And so, I mean, if you think of water in the right structure, it will actually run uphill. I don't know, I saw something in a Japanese garden that seemed to perplex a lot of people. I didn't think it was that perplexing, but like, how is this water running upstream? You can find it on YouTube. It's, yeah. So, oh, and I dropped off here. So, Facebook is awesome. So anyway, so the first law to consider is the law of mentalism. So this law really tells us that all is mind. And so some people really construe this to mean that all is conscious mind. But I've talked about this before, and there's actually 3 levels of mind. There is conscious, there's subconscious, and then there's superconscious. So subconscious and unconscious are basically the same. And then there's superconscious. And so there's a few ways that I could relate this. To say that all is energy, all is God, all is universe, whichever language really resonates for you, but I'm generally speaking about the same thing. And so your conscious mind is the smallest and most constricted of these levels. And so because it's more like the bulb that the electricity is expressed through. And the subconscious is maybe more like the electrical system in a house. So it's got all these like trip switches and like safety systems to make sure there's no surge. And then the superconscious is in essence the electricity that runs through everything. And so another way that I've heard that I really liked that relates this and sort of kind of aligns it with the law of vibration is and states is that steam, water, and ice are all three states, or they're three states of the same thing. And so this is in essence sort of the three levels of mind. So ice would be the conscious mind. It's the most constricted version. The subconscious would be the water. It's far less constricted, but it's really still constrained to the structure that it's in. And so then the superconscious is steam or vapor. It's everywhere. It's unseen. It vibrates at the highest level, and yet it's still water. And it's basically, it's considered that essentially all the other laws are created and affected by this first law. But if you really notice, these all kind of interweave among one another. And so, okay, so the next law that I would talk about is the law of vibration. And so this is sort of the same as the law of attraction, I suppose. Like they're related, obviously, and it could also be described as the law of focus. So whatever you focus on grows. What you focus on will affect your vibration, and this will then affect what you attract into your life. And so everything is vibrational. Everything has a frequency. So even rocks and metal and this table. And so based on its frequency, that kind of gives you a sense of like, I guess its ability to expand throughout and what it attracts and so on and so forth. And so wherever you vibrate at, this is what you attract into your life. And so I always like to kind of clarify some things with this, like this doesn't mean money. You cannot vibrate at the level of money. It's inanimate. That would be like me vibrating at the level of this table. Like, so sometimes people can kind of get this confused, but I can vibrate in line with someone who feels naturally abundant. And so again, this is basically like recognizing that you already have it. There's no like feeling of richness or whatever. Like it's really more recognizing that I have it now. That's what that means, as opposed to like, how would I feel if I won $1 million? It's not that. And so that's kind of where people can maybe they can get thrown off course. So and so I've also mentioned this before, that we shouldn't really confuse vibration with mood, because the human vibration is made up of more than just mood, because you can be happy as frick and not manifest what you want, because it's not about mood. So the heavier your emotions are, I guess the heavier the lower your vibration. And so the lighter your emotions are, the lighter your vibration. And so if you have heavy emotions around a specific topic, you can be in a great mood and still repel that thing, because it's not about mood. And so this is where I see a lot of people maybe get themselves confused. So they will say like, I'm happy all the time. What's going on? Well, so if you have, so for example, if you focus on abundance, so having it now, but then you feel that knot in your stomach when you go to pay your bills, or you resist spending that money because you're worried, that fear that you'll run out of money, then you have to understand that the latter, your dominant vibration around money, or even, I guess, may not be your dominant one, but you have some lower energies around money. And so that also doesn't mean go out and spend all your money, because you also have to be smart about your money, if that makes sense. Like, because throwing your money away also is another like lower vibration. So it's like there's some nuance to it. And so it's the same with creating a relationship. So for example, you can really feel like you love someone, but if you are judging them, you can love the heck out of them, but like sadness, loss, anger, fear, judgment, these are all lower vibrational energies. And so loving the heck out of them, but judging them and their actions, you're ensuring the judgment ensures that the things that you judge stay, and then that the person is in essence repelled, because we are all connected. And so that person is picking up on that judgment. And so when I talk about like energy work, these are really kind of what I'm talking about. And so this is kind of where it can be different when you're creating a new relationship versus you're like reconciling an existing relationship, is because you are going to go into that existing relationship, and I talk about this a little for later, but you in essence, you're creating something new. You don't have all these, you don't have like this history, I guess, that you need to kind of look at. And so this is kind of another reason that I really like people to consider that they're, and I know this one is not a popular opinion, but really it's sort of more, I guess, a deeper spiritual principle, that there really is no good or bad. There's no right or wrong. Everything just is. There's I like and I don't like. But the evaluation of everything is really just based on meanings that we give. And the meanings that we give are connected also to your vibration. So, and fun fact about your subconscious mind, so everything you judge as bad by your subconscious mind, or that your subconscious mind will ensure that you never, that person that you're judging as bad, you don't necessarily get to have in your life in a good way, if that makes sense. They'll stay in your life, but because you've judged them as bad, they kind of maintain that bad position, if that makes sense. So even if you criticize others, so for example, maybe your self-esteem is kind of low and you see someone and they're attractive, and if your self-esteem is low, you then judge them harshly. It will, in essence, kind of work in reverse to ensure that you never actually feel that you're attractive. And so it's it's kind of a double-edged sword that way, because the subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between you and the other. So anyway, that's kind of off topic. But so another law is the law of relativity. So this is a really powerful law because everything is relative to what we're comparing it to. So for example, like with your relationship, if you consider this, if there's a problem that arises and you are really focused on that problem, so that kind of ignites the law of focus, your reticular activating system is going to deem this as important, and it's going to bring your attention to it over and over. And so the law of relativity basically means that the more that you focus on something, the bigger it expands. And the best way I like to think about it is because you start thinking about it, like looking at it deeper and deeper and analyzing it, and trying to figure out a solution for it. And the more you do that, the greater it becomes in importance, the more and then your reticular activating system brings it more into your awareness. And so I like to think about it this way. Imagine you're eating toast and a crumb falls on the floor. And instead of just sort of sweeping it up and throwing it away, you get down and you start to really examine the crumb. Like the crumb is really going to begin to take up all your sight. And so the closer your face moves to the crumb, the bigger the crumb gets, until all you see is the crumb. And so as you move away from it again, then you begin to see the floor, and then you begin to see the table legs, and then you begin really to see more of the rest of the room. And then you realize I could just grab a broom and throw it away. And so it's really a matter of, if you want to apply the law of relativity effectively, it means zeroing out the focus on your current experience and sort of looking at it from a greater perspective, if that makes sense. Because the less you focus really on the problem, the more perspective, the more possibilities, the more opportunities you can see. So for example, so say you want to make $500,000 a year. So for someone that's already made $1 million a year, that seems easy, and it's not a big deal. But for someone who's only ever made $50,000 a year, it's a big deal. And so relativity really plays a big role in, I guess, how insurmountable or how possible something feels for you. And so then next is law of cause and effect. And so this, I guess, kind of aligns a little with chaos theory. So like a small amount of snowfall at the top of the mountain can create an avalanche, or those small, consistent daily actions can eventually reap those big rewards. And so as thoughts and emotions create your energy and your vibration, when it starts to get really overwhelming, it helps to really just focus on those small things that create those shifts. Because over time, the law of attraction is that as you focus on that little thing and you're focusing on those small wins, they begin to feel like bigger wins. But if you, and again, this is kind of where it ties into that law of relativity, if you're looking at it and you're comparing it to the hello, New York. If you start comparing it to like the end goal, then it can really start to blow it out of proportion, and then you really lose that I guess that build up, I guess. And so you could also look at cause and effect as essentially whatever your like dominant vibration is, or your dominant state, that is, you're going to be seeing this reflected in your life. So when you want to make changes in your life, you kind of want to take a step back and look from the outside, like how have I caused this effect? So every time I decide that I want to change something in my life, it doesn't matter what it is, I've always considered what Einstein said about the definition of insanity is to continue to do the same thing again and again and again, and to expect a different result, and that you don't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. So then I need to take a look outside, and I start, I guess, analyzing, like, okay, so I don't like this. Where have I accepted less? Where have I doubted myself? Where have I reacted rather than responded, et cetera, et cetera? Because these are all where you see the cause and effect, because the effect is sort of like past results. They are the results of your past thinking, your past feeling, your past state of being. And so if you want to make changes, this is where awareness really comes into play. Because it will allow you to kind of take a look and sort of really analyze yourself, because essentially we change ourselves and then the world arranges itself around us. If we start trying to control things outside of us, that's a key to frustration. I've spent time doing that. I don't recommend it. The other ways are far more effective. So if you just sort of commit to that change in yourself, then the law of cause and effect can be useful. So the law of polarity, and so this is also law of duality. This one I think is the most, if you remember this one, then any of those fears and those doubts that you have, this can really help with that. So it's this idea that we can't have health without understanding illness. There is no good without bad. There's no up without down. And so this also kind of enmeshes with the law of gender, which has, so I've got a cat coming to join. So this law of gender has nothing to do with human or animal gender. It's an energetic thing. It's more like opposing forces. Because feminine is like receiving and nurturing energy, whereas masculine is like doing and pushing kind of energy. And so when we see that there are these opposing energies, what this really means in terms of creation is if you have the desire then its opposite exists, which means anything that you have a desire for, the possibility to bring that desire into reality exists. So there is no impossible. I mean, at one point it was impossible to fly. At one point we couldn't go to the deepest depths of the ocean. Now we have ways to do that. We can fly in space. That used to be impossible. I mean, they're talking about taking people to like the moon, and my stepdad is convinced he's going to Mars. So, I mean, all these things that used to be impossible, all it requires is a desire and a recognition that the law of polarity, which is an absolute law, so means that there is a possibility for fulfillment of that desire. And so, yeah, she's going to drive me crazy. When I don't listen to her, she runs around the house and starts shooting things off counters. She's great. Cats are great. Anyway, so then we'll move into the law of gestation. So everything in nature has a time frame for it to come into form. So physical things have more structured time frames. For example, like a tree has a certain germination period. A human baby takes 9 months to develop. And then as these things come earlier, these physical things come earlier, there's the potential for complications, right? And so we consider we don't plant a tree and get a forest in a week. There's this period of gestation. Now, this also kind of aligns with the law of reaping and sowing. So if you sow it and then you're digging it up to check, is it coming? Is it coming? You're going to kill it. And so we kind of want to recognize, and also whatever we reap, we sow. So if I give a lot of goodness, and I'm again, this is kind of where people might, there is that, I guess, possibility for misunderstanding, because sometimes people can overgive of themselves, and that's not what I mean. But when we are something, I guess when we are giving, like, if I want to receive love, I become love, I give love, if that makes sense. And so with energy, the law of gestation is slightly different. So there is, it's not as fixed as it is in three-dimensional reality. It really has more to do with a law that I'm going to talk about near the end. And so, and also with creating things, I guess with more, not so much babies and trees, but say if I wanted to paint a picture there, and if I want to manifest something, there is morphic resonance that comes into this. And this is the memory in nature. So if I learn something, then I know it more easily. And then actually, I've talked about this before, it's been shown that generations that come after me, whether they're my kids or whether they're kids in another country, they are going to have this, oh, she's going to drive me crazy. They are going to have this, this memory, I guess, this information. And so when we create something, once you've done that, there's an energetic resonance. So even if you create it away, if you remember the steps to create it, then you can create it faster. Now, the problem is that a lot of people then assume, they sort of move into that like failure structure. Oh, this didn't work for me. And then that sort of works against them. That causes counter creation. I'm just, making sure she's not smashing all my things. So, and I know this because I learned this really the hard way. I manifested a relationship, but then I moved back into all my own patterns. I just slipped right back into that old identity, and I just basically got the exact same result I got the first time, which was to blow the relationship up. But the thing is, I had created it and I knew how it was done. So once I was done swearing, I really just did all those steps again, and it was faster. So we could say it was like a couple of, I think it was, well, let's be generous and say it was about 2 months the first time. The next time it was like 2 weeks. And then after that, when I did it, before I really clued in to what was going on, that I think it maybe took 2 days. And I don't do that anymore because I recognize that this is like an oscillating structure. So this is where you get hot and cold manifestations. Stop. And so it really has to do with sort of stepping in and out of new identity, old identity, new identity, old identity. So and some of this is really just building that memory, right? And so consistency will do this for you. So the law of rhythm is the next one. And so this one is kind of where I see people maybe get tripped up the most. So the law of rhythm basically not only states that everything in the universe has a cycle, right? So we have morning, we have night, and we have day, we have birth and death, we have seasons, there are rhythms in the planets. The entire universe has a rhythm. And so it also tells us the nature of impermanence in life. And this is why it's really important. And there are a number of spiritual teachings that really talk about not getting attached, right? Like really learning to detach from outcome. Because attachment from outcome ensures that you will be shaken when things shift and change. You're not moving with the energy of that because you're attached. Because nothing in life is permanent. And so as we can begin to just move and really flow with that, we don't get pretty much just taken right out by it. Another way that I see people, I guess, trying to violate the law of rhythm, and this is particularly pertinent when you're talking about like creating reconnection in a relationship. So it's important to recognize your original relationship is based on 2 original identities and it's broken. And that is why you need to reconnect it. So your identity of not good enough, your identity of unappreciated, unsupported, or whatever it is, that identity you cannot have a solid relationship with that. And so as we begin, we really move, as we get rid of all of that stuff, we take on this new identity. We cannot just step into the old relationship like you have to kind of observe the fact that when you're creating a new relationship, because as you've changed, this other person changes as well. And so although it's positive, you really have to respect this rhythm of creating a new relationship. And so this is also really important. I talk about this with my clients with focus, because this is the number one thing that I have seen a lot of times that can kind of throw them off track. So they get going really well. They start to reconnect, but either it's not moving as fast as they want, or there's maybe a bit of oscillation or whatever it is, but it's not moving as fast as they want, and they start to get frustrated. Now, have you ever been on a date with someone who was like wanting to marry you in that first minute? I know I have, and the energy of that is like, oh, no. And so that is essentially sort of what you're creating, even as you begin to reconnect with someone. And just because you have, say, 10, 5, 20 years, it doesn't even matter. Together, you're creating a new relationship. So if you start to jump into the end and are mad because they're not moving back in with you right away, you're violating that law of natural rhythm of creating a relationship. So it's important to recognize when you're reconciling, you're going back to the dating phase. Just enjoy it. I mean, most of us, our relationships kind of fall apart because we start focusing on there's no dating, there's no this, there's no that, they don't appreciate me the way they used to, but then we're mad that we don't also jump to the end. So it's like you got to pick, right? And you also have to recognize you are creating an entirely new relationship as a new person. So just relax and get into the flow, because I can guarantee you, if you were ticked off when you first started dating that person because they hadn't moved in yet, I highly doubt you would ever have made it to a long-term relationship. And so, yeah, your state has to be in rhythm with what you're creating. You want to keep your thoughts and emotions. They need to be aligned with that, creating that relationship, not, he or she sucks because we're not living together in the first 20 minutes. Like, that's kind of where people really start to like bunch up. And so, and I mean, it also is in understanding that that person, when you first met them, you were not investing all of your value in whether or not they are perceived your value or your assessment of their actions. You actually had your own sense of value. And so that was what made you attractive. And so it's sort of like reconstructing this, really settling into this. I am amazing and I don't need you to make me amazing. I can just enjoy your company. And so I like to think about it as if you were on a horse and you're galloping along, but for whatever reason you need to jump off this horse, but you need to jump on another horse. You're not just going to jump. You're going to need to get into the rhythm of the new horse, because if you just jump, you're just like, all right, I'm ready, and then you just jump, you're really setting yourself up to failure, and you're going to hit the ground. So even when you're creating this new or this reconciling this relationship, recognize that you are getting into the rhythm of an entirely new relationship. And so you begin living consciously and being proactive rather than reactive, and just focusing on the rhythm and your internal vibration rather than, just barreling in and trying to like make it all your way. And so, yeah, if you want to go faster, the best way really is always to just breathe and slow down and just notice how you feel, because high vibrational energy is never in a hurry, and the people around you, they feel you. So, yeah. So this one is your resistance, this law of transmutation. So like I said, there is you, there is what you want, and then there's all your emotions and stories in between. And so if you really observe this law, it can really make creation a lot easier for you, because you stop taking it personally and you recognize that for something to come into form, it has to go through a period of change. And this also relates to what I touched on in the law of rhythm. So you're creating a new relationship, even if it's with a current person. And so for this new relationship to come into form, there's that period of change where you're both shifting and changing, because you're going to change first, and then you're going to stand solidly and make that space for the people and for the world to change for around you, because it will happen. And when people fall off course, it's really because they're just not being solid in their new, in their identity, or they're sort of stepping back into old patterns, which really invites other people to step back into those old patterns. And it helps to recognize that as you move in to your new version of yourself, sometimes that's uncomfortable for people because that pushes them out of their comfort zone. And so they might kick up a bit of a fuss, but if you hold true, they will settle right in. Or, yeah. And so the law of transmutation also talks about how the new things you want to create, they are outside of your current comfort zone. So that's when all the emotions and the stories come up. The minute you really intend something that's not in your comfort zone, that doesn't align with your original identity, the ego starts to kick up a fuss because you've entered into the unknowns. So this is, when the emotions will come up, this is when all the limiting thoughts will come up, the doubts, the fears. And so if you just remember the law of polarity, that if you have a desire for it, it has to come into fruition, and that, or at least that there is that possibility. And that if you just really start to focus on your internal state and dealing with the resistance as it comes up, rather than all the evidence that your mind is throwing at you to tell you that it's all going wrong. Because often what happens, and this is very true, especially if we start to purge our emotional baggage, is that it seems like the world is kind of falling apart, and then you come out to the other side and you're like, ooh, I made it. And so this also, if maybe you can see, ties into the law of gestation. Because the longer it takes you to transmute those energies and stories that don't resonate with I can have or I have, the longer your gestation period, and that's all. So for the people that ask me, how long is this supposed to take? That long. It's really a matter of you sort of finding that identity that aligns with those feelings and that knowing of having it, and then really holding on to that. And so, if you want to go faster, as I said, breathe and slow down. It will really help you move through all of the thoughts and the emotions and the beliefs and whatnot, because you're going to have more emotional conscious control. And so I think the last law is the law of correspondence. And so this is as above, so below. You have to be it to see it. Law of assumption is based on this, right? You assume that it's yours, and then you just be the person that has it. And so what the law of correspondence is moving out of wanting, because desire is the seed, and then moving into being. So what this doesn't mean is you don't have to give up what you want, but you do have to give up that state of wanting and move into the state of having. So the best way I like to kind of describe this is, think of arriving at a restaurant. Your stomach is growling, you're starving. That is, I want to eat. Now think of being at that same restaurant and that meal you wanted is in front of you. You haven't eaten it yet, but that first I want, the first one is I want, and the second one is I have. And if you take a minute and kind of imagine those two scenarios, you can feel that they feel different. And so based on the law of polarity, you're going to enjoy having that meal more because you were hungry and in that state of wanting than you are going to if you weren't very hungry when you got there. And if I were to kind of throw in another layer to this analogy, if you don't believe that you can make the money to go into the restaurant to begin with, you're going to stay in that state of wanting and being hungry. And so as we kind of understand these laws, they're going to make creating a lot easier for you, because you're going to recognize that this is all structural. It's not personal. You are not the common denominator. And so if I were to tie these together, I will kind of create a little scenario. So if you start by remembering the law of polarity, it confirms that wherever there's a desire, then satisfaction of that desire also exists. And if I accept that there's a gestation period for every creation, and that it's in relationship to my personal period of transmutation, which is essentially transmuting all the emotions and the stories. You're stuffed. I'm hungry. I didn't eat yet. But if you accept that, that personal transmutation period is the time it takes you to align your focus, to transmute your old emotions that don't work, and the stories that move you or that keep you into wanting. And then you move through that transmutation into the law of correspondence. And so you do that by understanding that it's not about the things outside of you. Those are the cause and effect record of your previous state of being. And so, or your current state of being, if you're not consistent with being able to kind of align that energy, like to really have, I guess, somebody once called it a vibrational action plan. I like the way that, I like that. And so maintaining that focus outside of me confirms, as confirmation and permission of who I can be or what I can have, is definitely going to ensure that it stays a cause and effect result, right? And so this is because of that, that belief feedback loop. And so before moving my focus to how I feel, again, not mood, moving my focus to how I feel, and so not mood, noticing the sensations in my body, because I can be in a really great mood and also have my unconscious mind telling me basically what my actual beliefs are. So if I move my focus from outside of me to inside of me, then that puts everything into relative focus, and it makes that end that I'm creating seem a lot less out of reach, because I'm controlling what I can control. and I'm moving through that transmutation period. Like, oh, there is a belief. Let me deal with that. Oh, there is a negative emotion. Let me deal with that. Because now all I have to focus on is noticing when my vibration is off and when I'm not in rhythm with what I want to create. Because what that means is if I'm out of alignment with the law of vibration and the law of rhythm, then I'm also in violation of the law of correspondence. So I am not being it. I am not in my assumption. And so we get what we are, not what we want. And so if I honor that law of transmutation and I focus on my internal state so that I'm aligning to that rhythm and that getting into that vibrational resonance with what I want, which puts me into the law of correspondence, then now I'm in that state of I have, not that state of I want. And so we can get that there by really shifting our focus to things that are also kind of align us vibrationally. So I don't need to have that relationship. I just need to feel that, that same value of myself, that same love for me, with it or without it. And so in that puts me into that law of correspondence. I'm in that state of I have, not that state of I want. And then I can just relax into it and take aligned action where it's appropriate. And I can nurture that aligned state and really receive where it's appropriate. And now I'm in observance of the law of gender, right? So feminine energy is receiving, masculine energy is aligned action. And so this is essentially how I can use the 7 Hermetic Principles to recognize that when you are creating, it doesn't matter what is showing up. It is not personal unless you make it personal. Right. So I don't know if you have any questions about that. Hopefully I made that clearer than mud, but yeah. And then there's that lag, so I could sit here for a couple minutes. And Facebook kicked me out of the group, so. Okay, I'm glad that you liked it. I mean, these are kind of things that I really observed. Maybe not as actively, but I mean, I spent a lot of time, I guess, noticing the energy and really like the tacos. Yeah. I love tacos too. Is there anybody that doesn't though? But okay, so yeah, if there aren't really any questions, and for anybody that's watching this on the replay, I'd love it if you would let me know that you're watching the replay, and if you have questions, throw them in the comments, and then I will answer them, because I feel like basically the Hermetic Principles are like some of the oldest instructions on creating. I'm not sure, I can't confirm that they're the oldest, but they are among the oldest. They even predate the Bible. So I'm glad you did. I really liked this topic. I'm a bit of a, I don't know, an energy nerd. So I think I'm probably gonna move into talking about intuition, because really aligning with your intuition and understanding how, and maybe having some cheat tools can actually also really not only get you into that, sort of keep you in that place of the vibration that you want to be in, but it allows you to maybe see the signs. So sometimes I see people and they're looking for signs, but they're not seeing them because they're looking for signs, not noticing signs. And so all you really need to do is, I guess, trust your intuition, and then like you recognize the signs as they come to you. So yeah, I think next week that's what I'll talk about. So all right, well, have a really fantastic Thursday. Oh, and I think I lied, because I might take next week off because it's spring break. But I'm undecided. So I'll decide by Monday, and then I'll post whether I'm going to do a live or whether I'm going to take a week off and then do intuition in early April. So, okay, have a really fantastic Thursday, and I will see you in a week or 2 weeks, kind of depending on what I decide. You're welcome. All right. Have a great night.